Why do I talk to myself? Have you ever caught yourself arguing with yourself, debating whether to go to the gym or stay home, rehearsing an imaginary conversation, or even giving yourself a scolding? If so, you're experiencing one of the most common and fascinating features of human psychology, the experience of having persons inside you. But why do we have these inner dialogues? What does it really mean to be of two minds? And is it normal? In this talk, you'll discover that inner conflict is not a defect, but a natural and valuable feature of how your mind works. And by the end, you'll understand why your self-talk feels so real, how it arises from both ancient drives and relationship echoes, and how you see your inner committee as a source of insight, not shame. Hey everyone, I'm Henry, and you're watching Day 68 on my channel, Henry's Millions, where I dive deep into psychology, philosophy, and neuroscience, helping you explore and master the forces that shape your life. All right, the classical model, Sigmund Freud's three-part model. So, as you know, Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, gave us a framework that's still popular today. The mind as a negotiation among three players: the id, the ego, and the superego. So the id is your inner animal, the raw source of urges for food, comfort, pleasure, and sex. It wants satisfaction right now, regardless of consequence. Then the ego, it's your mind's negotiator. It knows about reality and tries to channel those urges into action that works in the real world. Think of it as the practical me, still motivated but able to make plans, delay gratification, and strategize. And then there's the superego. It's your internalized voice of authority, the rules, standards, and ideals you've absorbed from parents, teachers, and society. It keeps you in check, cheers you, or sometimes makes you feel guilty when you deviate from your moral code. So this model isn't just for psychologists. It's why you feel the push and pull between what you crave and what you ought to do, and what actually works. It explains that nagging tension between dessert and diet, speaking up and staying silent, or relaxing and hustling for success. Freud highlighted that these parts are more like overlapping zones than clear-cut regions. Sometimes your ego blends with your id, or your superego sounds supportive, sometimes harsh. So understanding these three parts gives you a vocabulary for your internal debates. If you're torn between instant pleasure and your long-term goals, that's the id and superego in a tug of war, with the ego caught in between. So why isn't the ego a single you? Modern psychology extends this model. Freud showed us where to look, but today's research suggests that ego isn't one single boss making all the decisions. Instead, it's more like a boardroom filled with competing interests, multiple drives, values, and voices, all pitching their cases for what you should do next. This idea comes from newer thinkers like John Mays and Simon Bogue, who emphasize your ego is not just a manager on top of things. Instead, it's built from your most active, socially permitted drives at any given moment. So think of yourself on a Friday night, torn between a night out, the urge for pleasure and social approval, and staying in to rest, the drive for safety or recovery. And the me who finally decides isn't the only possible you. It's just the winner of that internal negotiation at that time. So the key shift is this: the self you feel right now is actually the coalition of your strongest, most expressive drives, plus the habits and values that you've learned to display. And the drives you're taught are bad, embarrassing, or dangerous. They get suppressed, but they don't disappear. They become silent partners, or sometimes even saboteurs. So as your life changes, so do the members and leaders of this internal committee. You are flexible, it's not fixed. So this helps explain why you sometimes feel so inconsistent or surprised by your own actions. You're not a single unchanging self, but a dynamic alliance of competing and cooperating forces. So think of your mind as a chorus, not as a solo. One of the most liberating discoveries in psychology is that feeling of two minds. It's entirely normal. In fact, it's necessary for being a flexible, creative, and adaptive person. Have you ever desperately wanted to change, eat healthy, exercise, speak your truth, but found yourself pulled in the opposite direction, maybe even sabotaging your own plans? So this isn't laziness or a flaw. It's different motivational teams inside you vying for influence. So think about the last time you tried to resist a temptation. As you reasoned with yourself, you probably heard arguments from both sides. These are not just thoughts, they're expressions of deep, often competing drives. So being of two minds, or even more, is the rule, not the exception. It's what makes us capable of self-correction, empathy, and growth. If we were truly monolithic, we wouldn't be able to change. A single-minded system can't learn to see itself differently. So this is why when you reflect on your day, you sometimes wonder, why did I do that? The coalition in charge at 10 a.m. might be totally different than the one steering you at 6 p.m. So instead of chasing a true self that will finally be unified and untroubled, try this. Start paying attention to the chorus of voices inside of you. Who's speaking up? What do they want for you? You're not broken if you argue with yourself. You're just thoroughly and beautifully human. So what about the internalized others? How relationships become inner voices? So here's the next curveball. Not every voice inside you is purely your own. So from childhood onward, we internalize the people who mattered most. Parents, caregivers, teachers, mentors, even cultural icons. Their words and emotional tone become internal objects. These are mental representations that live on as part of our psychological landscape. You've got the supportive inner voice. So that's often an echo of someone who encouraged, comforted, or believed in you. Conversely, there's the destructive critic or doubter. Sometimes, sadly, that's a holdover from someone who shamed, punished, or questioned your worth. So neuroscience and psychoanalytic research show these inner figures aren't just inert memories. They're active templates shaping how we talk to ourselves, what we expect from the world, and how we handle both success and failure. When you replay an argument in your head or flinch from praise, you may well be enacting old roles that you learned in relationships long ago. So why does your self-talk feel so intense? Sometimes helpful, sometimes harsh? Because many of those voices started as real people reacting to you in crucial moments. They've now been absorbed into your internal boardroom. And recognizing whose voice is whose, where your inner critic learned its script, who your cheerleader echoes, that can be transformative. So what does this mean for you? Putting the pieces together here, the debates in your head are not a sign of some problem or pathology. Inner dialogue and internal conflict are baked into our human psyche. They arise from the tangled coalition of your biological drives, the cultural rules you've absorbed, and the living internal echoes of formative relationships. Everyone, everywhere experiences this. So whether you're wrestling with a decision, struggling with self-doubt, or repeating old emotional cycles, it's proof that your mind is doing what it's designed to do. Balancing a complex, sometimes contradictory set of needs, values, loyalties. So the great news is, once you recognize these patterns, you can start to make changes. You can see self-criticism as a voice, not an absolute truth. You can meet your desires and fears with understanding, not shame. And most importantly, you'll see that negotiating and reshaping your internal voices is not just possible, it's the work of a lifetime. It's something you should be doing. So that next time you catch yourself in a mental tug of war, or find your head filled with debate, criticism, or encouragement, just pause and listen closely. You're hearing the living system of drives, values, and relationship echoes that make you who you are. So remember, it's not weakness, it's just your mind in action. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to explore tools to make peace with these internal voices, how to listen to them, update the scripts, and lead your internal team toward greater harmony and self-mastery. So you want to look out for the next video. It's going to be part 2. And for now, this week, just notice your internal dialogue. Ask, whose voice is this? What does it want from me? And embrace your mind's complexity. See that self-talk, self-argument, it's a sign of growth in humanity. All right, if you found this mind-opening, stay tuned for part 2, how to make peace with your inner voices, where we'll move from understanding to practical transformation. And it might be this link here for the next video on YouTube. If it's there, click on it. And remember to like and subscribe to my channel, Henry's Millions. Thank you.